You want to know my biggest regret? It's not the money I didn't make in my 20s. It's not the opportunities I missed. It's the years I spent blaming everything and everyone else for my results. I blamed the government, taxes, the economy, my relatives, my neighbors. I had a whole list. And you know what? Having that list made me feel better. It gave me comfort, but it didn't give me results. It took a very special man named Mr. Schoaf to look me in the eye and say, "Jim, there's only one thing wrong with your list. You ain't on it." That sentence shattered my comfortable excuses and forced me to look in the mirror. And if you're willing to look in that same mirror with me today, I promise you your life will never be the same. Here's what we're going to accomplish together in the next 40 minutes or so. I'm going to show you the exact reasons, not excuses, but real, honest reasons why you haven't reached your potential yet. And more importantly, I'm going to give you the fundamentals that will change that. See, most people think the problem is outside themselves. They think they need more time, more money, more opportunities, better circumstances. But I learned something profound from my mentor, and it changed everything for me. The problem isn't what's happening around you, it's what's happening inside you. Your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change. And the change that matters most is the change in your personal philosophy. Now, I understand your frustrations. I've been there. You're working hard, but your results don't match your effort. You set goals, but they fade away within weeks. You see others succeeding, and you wonder what they have that you don't. You feel like you're capable of more, but you can't seem to break through. And here's the worst part, sometimes you wonder if this is just how life is supposed to be. Am I right? I thought so, because I've talked to thousands of people just like you, and these are the same struggles I hear again and again. Let me tell you what most self-help gurus will tell you to do. They'll say think positive thoughts, visualize your dreams, make affirmations, stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself you're successful. And look, I'm not against positive thinking, but that's not what I'm going to tell you today. Because here's the truth, affirmations without discipline are just self-delusion. You can stand in front of that mirror all day long saying, "I am wealthy, I am successful, I am confident," but if you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to change your daily habits, if you're not willing to develop new disciplines, those affirmations are nothing but words soothing your conscience while your life stays exactly the same. What I'm going to share with you is something different, something based on 39 years of studying what actually works. I'm not going to give you theories. I'm going to give you the same fundamentals that took me from broke at 25 to millionaire by 31. The same fundamentals that have worked for over 4 million people. I've shared them with across the world. These aren't new ideas, they're timeless principles that work regardless of your age, your background, or your current circumstances. And by the end of our time together, you'll understand the gap between where you are and your potential. You'll know exactly which areas need work, and you'll have a clear, practical path to close that gap. Not someday, starting today. Now, let me start by sharing a story that illustrates the very first reason most people never reach their potential. Let me take you back to when I was 25 years old. I was married, had started a little family, and I was full of promises about the wonderful future that was just around the corner. I'd gone to college for 1 year, thought I was smart enough, and quit. Big mistake. One of many major mistakes I would make during those early days. But I was impatient to work and to earn, figuring I wouldn't have any trouble getting a job. And I was right about that. Getting a job wasn't hard. What I didn't understand yet was the difference between merely making a living and making a life. I got married and, like the typical husband, I made my wife all kinds of promises about the wonderful future we were going to have together. After all, I was bright, ambitious, willing to work. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you what went wrong. 6 years went by. 6 years. And at the end of those 6 years, I had pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank. I was behind on my promises. I was behind on my dreams. And I didn't have a clue, not even a small clue, about how to change my life for the better. Now, I remember standing in my little apartment, looking around at what I'd created in those years of adult life and feeling this weight. Not the weight of failure exactly, but the weight of knowing I was capable of more and not doing anything about it. I'd work all day, come home tired, watch a little television, go to bed, get up the next morning, and do it all over again? Day after day, week after week, month after month, and nothing was changing. Nothing was getting better. But then came the moment that changed everything. I was lounging at home one day when I heard a knock at the door. It was a timid, hesitant knock. When I opened the door, I looked down to see a pair of big brown eyes staring up at me. There stood this frail little girl, about 10 years old. She told me, with all the courage and determination her little heart could muster, that she was selling Girl Scout cookies. And it was a masterful presentation, let me tell you. She described several flavors, mentioned a special deal, told me they were only $2 per box. How could anyone refuse? Finally, with a big smile, and ever so politely, she asked me to buy, and I wanted to. Oh, how I wanted to. Except for one thing. I didn't have $2. Not in my pocket, not in the house, nowhere. Boy, was I embarrassed. Here I was a father, had been to college, was gainfully employed, and yet I didn't have $2 to my name. Naturally, I couldn't tell this to the little girl with the big brown eyes. So I did the next best thing. I lied to her. I said, "Thanks, but I've already bought Girl Scout cookies this year, and I've still got plenty stacked in the house." Now, that simply wasn't true, but it was the only thing I could think of to get me off the hook, and it did. The little girl said, "That's okay, sir. Thank you very much." And with that, she turned around and went on her way. I stared after her for what seemed like a very long time. Finally, I closed the door behind me, and leaning back against it, I cried out, "I don't want to live like this anymore. I've had it with being broke, and I've had it with lying. I'll never be embarrassed again by not having any money in my pocket." That day, I promised myself to earn enough to always have several $100s in my pocket at all times. This is what I mean by a nitty-gritty reason. It may not win me any prize for greatness, but it was enough to have a permanent effect on the rest of my life. See, that moment, that tiny, seemingly insignificant moment with a Girl Scout at my door became the beginning of everything that followed. And I'm sharing this with you because your moment might be happening right now. The question isn't whether you'll have a moment like that. The question is, will you recognize it? Will you let it change you? Or will you close the door, go back to the couch, and keep living the same way you've been living? Now, my Girl Scout cookie story does have a happy ending. Several years later, as I was walking out of my bank where I had just made a healthy deposit and was crossing the street to get to my car, I saw two little girls who were selling candy for some girls' organization. One of them approached me saying, "Mister, would you like to buy some candy?" "I probably would have anyway," I said playfully. "What kind of candy do you have?" She said, "It's almond roca." I said, "Almond roca? That's my favorite." "How much is it?" She said, "It's only $2. $2. It couldn't be. I was excited. "How many boxes of candy have you got?" I asked. She said, "I've got 5. Looking at her friend, I said, "And how many boxes do you have left?" She answered, "I've got 4. That's 9. "Okay, I'll take them all." At this, both girls' mouths fell open as they exclaimed in unison, "Really?" "Sure," I said. "I've got some friends that I'll pass some around to." Excitedly, they scurried to stack all the boxes together. I reached into my pocket and gave them $18. As I was about to leave, the boxes tucked under my arm, one of the girls looked up and said, "Mister, you're really something. How about that?" Can you imagine spending only $18 and having someone look you in the face and say, "You're really something"? I'm not about to miss chances like that ever again. But here's what I really want you to understand about this story. The change in my life didn't come because I got lucky. It didn't come because the economy improved. It didn't come because someone gave me a big break. The change came because I changed. And that change started with meeting a very special man. Shortly after that Girl Scout cookie moment, good fortune came my way. Why did it appear at that point in my life? Why do good things happen when they do? I really don't know. For me, this is part of the mystery of life. But my good fortune came when I met a man, a very special person by the name of Earl Schoaf. I first saw him at a sales conference where he was conducting a seminar. I cannot tell you exactly what he said that evening that captivated me so, but I can still remember thinking to myself that I would give anything to be like him. There was something about the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, the confidence he had. He was successful, and it showed not in an arrogant way, but in a way that made you want to learn from him. At the end of the seminar, it took all the courage I could muster to just walk up to him and introduce myself. My hands were shaking. I stumbled over my words, but in spite of my fumbling, he must have seen my desire to succeed. He was kind and generous, and eventually took a liking to me. A few months later, he hired me to join his sales organization, and for the next 5 years, I learned many of life's lessons from Mr. Schoaf. He treated me like a son, spending hours teaching me his personal philosophy. One day, Mr. Schoaf said something that changed everything for me. He said, "Jim, if you want to be wealthy and happy, learn this lesson well. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job." Since that time, I've been working on my own personal development, and I must admit that this has been the most challenging assignment of all. This business of personal development lasts a lifetime. You see, what you become is far more important than what you get. The important question to ask on the job is not, "What am I getting?" Instead, you should ask, "What am I becoming?" Getting and becoming are like Siamese twins. What you become directly influences what you get. Think of it this way. Most of what you have today, you have attracted by becoming the person you are today. So here's the great axiom of life, and I want you to write this down. To have more than you've got, become more than you are. This is where you should focus most of your attention. Otherwise, you just might have to contend with the axiom of not changing, which is this: unless you change how you are, you'll always have what you've got. Income rarely exceeds personal development. Sometimes income takes a lucky jump, but unless you learn to handle the responsibilities that come with it, it will usually shrink back to the amount you can handle. Now let me teach you something Mr. Schoaf taught me that absolutely revolutionized how I saw life. He taught me to think about life like the seasons, and this perspective changed everything. He said, "Jim, life and commerce are like the seasons." And then he said something even more important. He said, "You cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself." Let me explain what he meant, because this is crucial to understanding why you're not living to your full potential yet. Winter always comes. There are all kinds of winters. There are economic winters, when the financial wolves are at the door. There are physical winters, when our health is shot. There are personal winters, when our heart is smashed to pieces. Wintertime, disappointments, loneliness. That's how the blues were written. And here's something you need to understand after 6,000 years of recorded history. Winter always follows fall. Every time. Without fail. True. Some winters are long and some are short. Some are difficult and some are easy. But no matter what, they always come. It isn't going to change. So the big question is, how do we handle the winters? Some people, when winter comes, they go to the calendar, tear out the month of January, and pretend it isn't there. But that's the childish approach. It solves nothing. Let me tell you what mature people do when winter comes. They get stronger, they get wiser, they get better. Not a bad idea to use the winter for personal development. Before I understood this, I used to spend my winters looking for summers. I didn't understand. I'd be going through a tough time, and I'd waste all my energy wishing it would end, wishing things were easier, wishing I didn't have so many problems. Then, finally, when I was going through a sales slump, Mr. Schoaf said something I'll never forget. He said, "Jim, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less of a challenge, wish for more wisdom." Since then, I can't honestly tell you that I've welcomed the winters, but I can tell you that I've used them to gear up for spring, which always comes after winter. Always. And that brings me to spring. Learn to take advantage of spring. Expansion follows recession just like clockwork. God is a genius. Spring is the time to take advantage. Make a note of these two words, take advantage. Don't let the balmy weather confuse you. If you want to look good in the fall, this is the time to plant the seeds. In fact, we all have to excel at one of two things. Either we become good at planting in the spring, or we learn how to beg in the fall. So get busy in the spring. There is just a handful of springs for each of us. Life is so short, you don't have unlimited time to make the changes you need to make. Every spring that passes without planting is a lost opportunity, and once it's gone, you can't get it back. Then comes summer. Learn to nourish and protect your crops all summer. You can bet that as soon as you've planted, the insects and weeds will try to destroy your crop, and they will succeed unless you prevent them. Part of succeeding is learning to protect what you've created, and that's the greatest lesson of summer. Here are 2 truths you'll learn during your summers. First, you'll learn that all good will be attacked. Don't press me for the reason. I don't know why, but I do know that it's true. Every garden will be invaded. Not to understand this is naive. Second, you'll learn that all values must be defended. All values, social, political, marital, commercial, must be defended. Every garden must be tended all summer. Unless you defend what you believe in, come fall, you'll have nothing left. And that brings us to fall. Fall is the season where we reap the results of our springs and summers. Maturity can be defined by our ability to take full responsibility for the crops we have tended, either bountiful or meager. Accepting full responsibility is one of the highest forms of human maturity and one of the hardest. It's the day you pass from childhood to adulthood. Learn to welcome fall without apology or complaint. Without apology if you've done well, and without complaint if you've not. It's not easy, but it's the mature thing to do. I used to have a lot of problems in this area back in those early days. Just in case anyone asked, I used to carry with me a list of the reasons I wasn't doing well. My list, which I predictably called reasons for not doing well, included lots of alibis. I blamed the government. The government was at the top of my list. I blamed taxes. Look what you've got left after they take everything out. I blame prices. You walk into a supermarket with $20 and come out with half a bag of groceries. I blame the weather. I blame the traffic. I blame my car and the car manufacturer. I blame my negative relatives. They are always putting me down. I blame my cynical neighbors. I blame the community. Hey, I had lots of good reasons for not doing well. At least I thought I did. Mr. Schoaf was very kind, but he was also blunt. One day he looked up at me and with a quizzical expression on his face asked, "Jim, just out of curiosity, tell me why you haven't done well up to now." Excellent question, right? Well, so that I wouldn't look bad, I decided to run through my list. How I ever had the nerve, I'll never know, but I did. I went through the whole litany, the government, taxes, prices, everything. He listened patiently as I went through it all. When I was finished, he peered at my list for a few long moments. Then, shaking his head slowly, he said something I will never, ever forget. "Jim," he said, "there's only one thing wrong with your list." I leaned forward, eager to find out what vital thing I had left off my list. He continued, "You ain't on it." 6 words. That's all it took. You ain't on it. My list had everything and everyone on it except the one person who mattered, me. I wasn't taking responsibility. I was giving away my power to change by blaming things I couldn't control. And as long as I blamed the government, I gave the government control over my success. As long as I blamed the economy, I gave the economy control over my life. As long as I blamed my relatives and neighbors, I gave them control over my future. And the truth was, none of those things were stopping me. I was stopping me. That conversation was like looking in a mirror for the first time. And what I saw wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. Because until you take full responsibility for your results, you can't change them. As long as it's someone else's fault, you're powerless. But the moment you say, "I'm responsible for where I am, and I'm responsible for changing it," everything shifts. Now you have power. Now you can do something about it. Let me share another quick story that illustrates an important principle. Years later, after I'd learned these lessons from Mr. Schoaf, he taught me something I call the 2 quarters philosophy. One day he said, "Jim, I want you to imagine you're getting your shoes shined. Your shoe shine boy is doing an incredible job for you. In fact, you're getting one of the world's all-time great shines. As you pay him for the shine, you consider what kind of tip to give him. You think, shall I give him a quarter or 2 quarters? If 2 different amounts come to mind, always go for the higher amount. Become a 2-quarter person. I must be missing something, I thought. Perplexed, I asked, what difference does it make 1 quarter or 2 quarters? He said, it makes all the difference in the world. If you said, well, I'll just give him 1 quarter, that would affect you for the rest of the day. You'll start feeling a little guilty, just a bit insecure. And sometime during your day, you'd look at the sheen on your leather and say, I certainly am cheap, 1 lousy quarter tip for a shine like this. On the other hand, he added, if you go for the 2 quarters, you'll feel prosperous and confident all day long. You can't believe the difference that a 2-quarter mentality can make. Now, it wasn't really about the money, it was about the mindset. It was about training yourself to act like the person you're trying to become, even before you get there. It was about developing a prosperity consciousness, a generosity of spirit, a philosophy of abundance rather than scarcity. And that philosophy, that way of thinking, it affects everything you do. Now, let me get to the heart of why you're not living to your full potential. And it starts with something most people never think about: your personal philosophy. Your philosophy is the way you think about life, about work, about money, about relationships, about success. It's your collection of beliefs and attitudes. Your philosophy is like a set of glasses you wear that colors everything you see. And here's what most people don't understand. Your philosophy creates your attitude determines your activity, and your activity produces your results. Most people try to change their results without changing their philosophy. They want more money without developing a wealthy philosophy. They want better relationships without developing a philosophy of service and value. They want success without developing the philosophy of a successful person. It doesn't work that way. You can't harvest what you didn't plant. You can't reap corn when you planted weeds. Let me give you an example. Poor people and rich people have wildly different philosophies. A poor person's philosophy says, spend your money and invest what's left. That philosophy ensures poverty. Why? Because there's never anything left. After you pay your bills and buy your groceries and take care of all your needs and wants, there's nothing left to invest. A rich person's philosophy says, invest your money and spend what's left. Same amount of money, different philosophy, completely different results. The rich person invests first, takes that money right off the top and puts it where it can grow. Then they spend what's left. And you know what? They seem to get by just fine. Or take personal development. Some people have a philosophy that says, I'm fine the way I am. I don't need to change. I know enough. I've got enough skills. Other people have a philosophy that says, I need to work harder on myself than I do on my job. I need to keep growing, keep learning, keep developing. Which philosophy do you think creates better results over time? Of course, the second one. Because the person who's committed to growth keeps getting better. They keep adding to their value. They keep expanding their skills. And their income follows their personal development. Your philosophy doesn't come from the sky. You didn't inherit it in your genes. You form it from everything you read, everyone you meet, every experience you have, every decision you make. If you read good books, you develop a good philosophy. If you spend time with successful people, you develop a successful philosophy. If you study failure, you develop a philosophy of failure. It's that simple. And here's the good news. You can change your philosophy anytime you want. It starts with being honest about what you currently believe and whether those beliefs are serving you. Here's the second reason you're not reaching your potential, and this is important. You're working hard, but you're working on the wrong thing. Most people work hard on their job. They put in the hours, follow the rules, try to impress the boss. And that's fine, you should do good work. But that's not where the magic happens. The magic happens when you work on yourself. Think about it. You could work yourself to exhaustion on your job, but if you're not growing as a person, if you're not reading, learning, developing new skills, refining your character, your results will stay the same. Or worse, you'll burn out chasing something you can never catch. Because what you become directly influences what you get. This is why I spent the last 39 years working primarily on myself. Not because I'm selfish, but because I understand that if I want to help more people, serve at a higher level, create more value, I need to become more capable. I need to read more books, develop more skills, gain more wisdom, refine my character. Better is not something you wish. It's something you become. And income rarely exceeds personal development. You might get lucky and have your income jump ahead of your development, but it won't stay there. It'll come back down to match who you are. That's why lottery winners often end up broke again. They got the money, but they didn't become the person capable of handling that much money. Their personal development didn't match their income, so the income shrank back to match their development. The third lesson is about discipline. And I know discipline doesn't sound exciting. Nobody gets fired up about discipline. But let me tell you something. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. You can set all the goals you want. You can make vision boards and affirmations and write things down in beautiful journals. But unless you develop the discipline to do what needs to be done, day after day, nothing changes. Nothing. Now here's the key that most people miss. You don't have to develop massive discipline all at once. Start with small disciplines. Don't try to change everything at once. That's overwhelming, and you'll quit. Do you want to lose weight? Start by eating your bread unbuttered. Want to go to Europe? Start by setting aside $20 each week. Want to be punctual? Start by getting up a half hour earlier. Want to make $1 million sale? Start by making a $50 sale. As one wise person said, inch by inch, everything's a cinch. But if you never take the small steps, nobody, including yourself, will trust you with the big ones. Here's why this matters. Every discipline affects every other discipline. When you master a small discipline in one area, you build the muscle memory for discipline in all areas. It's like exercising. When you strengthen one muscle group, it makes it easier to strengthen others. And every time you skip a small discipline, you weaken your ability to handle bigger challenges. The smallest of disciplines, practiced every day, starts an incredible process that can change your life forever. It builds what I call soaring self-worth, the feeling of knowing you're becoming someone better than you were yesterday. And that feeling, that confidence, it spills over into everything else you do. You walk taller. You speak with more authority. You take on bigger challenges, all because you mastered the small disciplines. Let me give you an example. Let's say you decide to read 10 pages of a good book every day. Just 10 pages. That's a small discipline. Takes maybe 15 minutes. But if you do that every single day for a year, you know how many books you'll read? Probably 15 to 20 books, depending on the length. Now, most people don't read even one book a year after they're done with school. But you'll have read 15 to 20. Think about how much you'll know. Think about how many new ideas you'll have. Think about how your vocabulary will expand, how your confidence will grow, how your perspective will broaden. All from one small discipline practiced every single day. Now, here's something else you need to understand about life and success. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. Life and commerce are like the seasons, and you cannot change the seasons. Winter will come. Challenges will appear. Economic downturns happen. Personal struggles emerge. You can't stop them. Some people spend their entire lives fighting against this reality. They get angry at winter. They complain about difficulties. They waste energy wishing things were different. But here's what mature people understand. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. You can change how you respond. You can change what you learn. You can change what you become. After 6,000 years of recorded history, life is a mixture of opportunity and difficulty. That's the way it is. That's not going to change. Sometimes you can figure it out. Sometimes it's a puzzle. Sometimes it goes well. Sometimes it's a disaster. Sometimes it sails along. Sometimes it gets all tied up in knots. You see, it's not going to change. The guy says, well then, how will my life change? And the answer is, your life will change only when you change. Whenever I speak, whether I address business executives or high school kids, my message is always the same. The only way it gets better for you is when you get better. Better is not something you wish. It's something you become. This is why success is so much about personal development, because the challenges aren't going away. The competition isn't getting easier. The economy isn't going to arrange itself perfectly for your benefit. Your life will change only when you change. Now let me talk about something that will absolutely transform your life if you let it. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that for a moment. Look around you. Who are you spending time with? Are they pulling you up or dragging you down? Are they encouraging your growth or celebrating your mediocrity? Are they readers or TV watchers? Are they dreamers or complainers? Are they striving to be better or content to stay where they are? This isn't about being snobby or abandoning people. It's about understanding influence. If you spend time with people who make excuses, you'll start making excuses. If you spend time with people who don't read, you won't read. If you spend time with people who don't have goals, you'll stop setting goals. It's just the way it works. We become like the people we associate with. But here's the flip side, and this is exciting. If you spend time with people who are growing, you'll grow. If you spend time with people who have high standards, your standards will rise. If you spend time with people who read good books, you'll start reading. If you spend time with people who challenge you to be better, you'll become better. Association is that powerful. You've got to guard your associations like you guard your health. Maybe even more carefully, because bad associations can kill your dreams faster than disease kills your body. Now, you might be thinking, but these are my family. These are my friends. I can't just leave them. I'm not saying abandon anyone. I'm not saying be unkind or cut people off. I'm saying be intentional. Spend more time with people who inspire you. Seek out mentors. Join groups of people who are where you want to be. Read books by people who've accomplished what you want to accomplish. If everyone around you is negative, find some positive people. If everyone around you is broke, find some people who are financially successful. If everyone around you is out of shape, find some people who are healthy and fit. You don't have to abandon the old relationships, but you do need to add new ones. Association is powerful. Don't underestimate it. All right, now, let me give you some practical things you can do starting today. First, I want you to develop your personal philosophy, and it begins with this simple exercise. Get yourself a journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, a simple notebook will do. And I want you to start asking yourself questions and writing down the answers. Questions like, what do I really believe about success? What do I believe about money? What do I believe about my own abilities? What do I believe about hard work versus luck? What do I believe is possible for my life? Write these down. Be honest. Don't write what you think you should believe. Write what you actually believe right now. Then here's the important part. Ask yourself whether each belief is serving you or limiting you. If you believe that you're not smart enough to succeed, is that belief serving you? Of course not. It's limiting you. So write down what you want to believe instead. I am capable of learning anything I need to learn to succeed. See the difference? One belief keeps you stuck. The other belief opens up possibilities. Your philosophy isn't set in stone. You can change it, but you have to know what it is first. You can't change what you're not aware of. Do this exercise weekly. Keep refining your philosophy. Read good books and let them influence your thinking. Spend time with successful people and let their philosophy rub off on you. Because remember, your philosophy creates your attitude determines your activity, and your activity produces your results. Change your philosophy. Change your life. Second practice. I want you to create what I call your daily discipline list. Write down 3 small disciplines you're going to practice every single day for the next 90 days. Not big, overwhelming changes. Small, manageable disciplines. For example, read 10 pages of a good book every day. Exercise for 20 minutes every morning. Write down 3 things you're grateful for before bed. Save 5% of every dollar you earn. Spend 1 hour learning a new skill. Pick 3. Only 3. Make them small enough that you can't fail. Because the goal isn't to transform overnight. The goal is to build the muscle of discipline. Every evening, check off whether you did your 3 disciplines. If you did, give yourself credit. Feel that small win. If you didn't, don't beat yourself up, just do better tomorrow. After 90 days, these disciplines will become habits, and those habits will change your life. Then you can add 3 more. but start with just 3. Small disciplines, practiced every day, create the foundation for everything else. Third practice, take an honest look at your associations. Write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Then, next to each name, write down whether they're pulling you up or holding you back. Are they encouraging your growth or your excuses? This isn't about judging them. It's about being honest with yourself. Then write down the names of 3 people you admire, people who are where you want to be. They can be people you know personally or people you've only read about. Figure out how you can spend more time learning from them, whether it's in person, through books, or through their teachings. Finally, make a commitment. Spend less time with the people who drain you and more time with the people who inspire you. Join a group of people who are growing. Find a mentor. Attend events where successful people gather. Read books by people who've achieved what you want to achieve. Your associations will either lift you to your potential or keep you trapped where you are. Choose wisely. Fourth practice. Start a personal development plan. Here's how. Set aside 1 hour every day for personal development. I know you think you don't have an hour. You do. You just haven't made it a priority yet. Turn off the television an hour earlier. Get up an hour earlier. Use your lunch break. You'll find the time if you're serious. During that hour, read for 30 minutes. Not fiction, but books on business, personal development, philosophy, biographies of successful people. Listen to educational content for 15 minutes while you drive or exercise. Spend 15 minutes journaling about what you learned and how you'll apply it. Do this every single day for 6 months. In 6 months, you'll be a completely different person. Your vocabulary will change. Your confidence will change. Your income will change. Your results will change. Why? Because you're working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Remember, to have more than you've got, become more than you are. And becoming more requires investing in yourself daily. Let me bring this home for you. You are not living to your full potential for one simple reason. You haven't yet become the person capable of living at that level. But here's what I want you to understand. You can become that person. Starting today. Starting right now. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to wake up tomorrow transformed. But if you'll apply these fundamentals consistently, if you'll work on your philosophy, develop small disciplines, improve your associations, and invest in personal development every single day, 6 months from now, you won't recognize yourself. A year from now, your life will look completely different. The gap between where you are and your full potential isn't as wide as you think. It's just filled with excuses you've been believing, disciplines you've been avoiding, and changes you've been postponing. But now you know better, and knowing better means you're responsible for doing better. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated every day. You get to choose which one describes your life. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom. Your life will change only when you change. And the best time to start changing is right now. Not tomorrow. Not next Monday. Not next month. Right now. If this message resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button because I share these timeless principles regularly. They're the same fundamentals that changed my life and the lives of millions of others. Leave a like if this spoke to you. Not for me, but as a reminder to yourself that you're committed to change. And here's the most important part. Leave a comment below and tell me which practice you're going to start with. Will it be the daily disciplines, the personal development hour, evaluating your associations, working on your philosophy? Write it down in the comments. Make it real. Make yourself accountable. Remember, your life doesn't have to stay the way it is. You have everything you need to reach your full potential. The question is, will you do the work? Will you make the changes? Will you develop the disciplines? Will you take full responsibility for your results? I hope you will. I believe you can. Now go do the work.